The day the sky fell silent. The morning it happened felt like any other. Sunlight spilling gently through the kitchen window, the smell of pancakes drifting through the air, and laughter echoing off the walls of a small farmhouse on Willow Creek Road. It was the kind of morning that made life feel safe, simple, ordinary. No one could have known that by nightfall, everything would change. The Thompsons were the picture of a loving American family. Michael, the father, was a firefighter, brave and dependable, with a quiet heart that carried the weight of other people's tragedies. Emily, his wife, was a music teacher whose voice could soften even the hardest day. Their 10-year-old son, Ethan, was a burst of life itself, a boy who ran faster than the wind, laughed louder than anyone, and dreamed of becoming a pilot. That Saturday morning, they were driving out of town for a weekend trip. The sun shimmered on the horizon. Music played on the radio, and Ethan was in the back seat, humming his favorite tune and clutching his blue blanket. It was one of those perfect family moments, the kind you never think will end. Then came the blinding headlights, the screech of tires, a horn, and the world went silent. When Emily opened her eyes, everything was pain and chaos. Shattered glass, metal twisted like paper, the taste of blood. Her hands reached out blindly. Michael was slumped over the wheel, breathing but unconscious. Ethan was in the back seat, still, too still. "Ethan," she screamed, her voice cracking. No answer. Paramedics arrived within minutes, pulling them from the wreckage. Sirens cut through the night. The sky, once clear and golden, was now filled with the flashing red and blue lights of tragedy. At the hospital, Michael woke up with minor injuries. Emily's ribs were fractured, but she could walk. Ethan didn't wake up. The doctor said the words no parent ever wants to hear. "He's in a coma. We don't know when or if he'll wake." Days turned into weeks. Machines beeped. Monitors flashed. Emily sat by his bedside every single day, reading him stories, singing lullabies, holding his hand as if her touch could bring him back. Michael visited after every shift, sitting silently beside them, tears he never allowed his coworkers to see, spilling freely now. 3 months passed. Then one morning, as Emily whispered her usual words, "Good morning, my love," she felt his fingers move, just barely. Then again, "Ethan," she gasped. The monitors spiked, nurses rushed in, and suddenly the room was alive with motion. He was waking up. It took days for him to speak, weeks to understand, and months to accept what had happened. His legs wouldn't move. The boy who once raced through the fields behind their house was now bound to a wheelchair. At first, Ethan didn't cry. He just stared at the window, at the sky, at the world that seemed to go on without him. Then one night, Emily found him sobbing quietly, whispering, "I don't want to be broken forever." She held him, heart trembling, and said softly, "You are not broken. You're just beginning again." Rehabilitation began soon after. It was grueling. Every session left him trembling. Every step of progress felt painfully small. Michael built him a ramp at home, spent hours learning how to help with his therapy. Emily played music during his sessions, soft melodies to remind him that beauty still existed. There were setbacks, infections, failed procedures, nights when Ethan screamed in frustration, begging to stop. But he didn't. He kept going. Years passed. The seasons changed outside their window, but inside, time was measured in inches. The first time he moved his toes. The first time he stood with braces. The first trembling step with the therapist's arms around him. And then came the day they had been waiting for. It was spring. Sunlight poured through the window of the rehab center. Ethan took a deep breath, placed his hands on the walker, and slowly, painfully, pushed himself up. His legs shook, his breath caught. But he didn't fall. He stood. Emily's hands flew to her mouth. Michael turned away, hiding his tears. The entire room went silent. Then Ethan looked up at them and said, with the smallest, proudest smile, "See, Mom, I told you I'd fly again." 5 years later, Ethan was walking without braces. Not perfectly. His steps were uneven, slow, but they were his. He began visiting hospitals, talking to other kids who'd lost hope. He showed them his scars, told them about the days he wanted to give up, and how he learned that miracles aren't magic, they're just made of persistence, love, and faith. His art, the dreamscapes he painted during recovery, was exhibited again, this time in a big city gallery. The newspaper headline read, "Boy Who Couldn't Walk Teaches the World to Stand Again." That night, at the exhibit, Michael and Emily stood beside him, watching as strangers wiped tears from their eyes in front of Ethan's paintings. Ethan turned to his parents and said quietly, "I think that crash didn't take my life, Mom. It gave it back, just in a different shape." Emily smiled through her tears. "You're right, sweetheart. Sometimes, when the sky falls, it's only so we can learn how to reach for it again."